I have got a very interesting, exciting, dynamic, and cool show for everybody today because not only is my guest a top 100 coach and one of the best coaches out there in the game today, he is very well known. And one thing he's probably known quite a bit for is he is not afraid to voice his opinion. And after you listen to today's show, or as you're listening to it, you're going to find out why. And for me, a big part of that equation is he has a very deep desire to um, learn more from some very smart people, go outside the realm of golf, so to speak, and bring people from other sciences or other professions in so he can learn about them if he thinks that that's an integral part of the game that can help his coaching, his educating his students and other coaches and just other people as he looks to better himself and what he can do to better somebody's game. If you haven't guessed it yet, his name is Brian Manzella. And whether you like Brian or whether you loathe him, there is one thing for certain, and that is just about everybody out there in the golfing world has a respect for Brian and his desire to continually research, learn, improve, and help people at various levels of the game. As I mentioned, he is not afraid to voice his opinion on various topics, largely in part because of his desire to want to learn more, help educate others. And sometimes that worked in his favor where self-admittedly, and he talks about it today, it probably helped propel him into the top 100 list and become very well known. But it also might have worked on the negative side where it probably has cost him some friendships. And he will expound upon that in large part in something in the coaching world that may not be known to the masses out there, is something going on called the Alpha War, where there are two groups of coaches and scientists, doctorates, some very, very smart people who have a big disagreement on how some things happen in the golf swing that again, we get into today. I really enjoyed having him on. I like talking to him. I have a lot of respect for him in that he is not afraid to put his information out there. He doesn't go seeking adversity, but he definitely doesn't back away if somebody challenges him on what he has learned, what he's researched, and what his beliefs are. So I trust everybody's going to enjoy this. You're going to get a lot out of it. He's a very smart guy, and again, has a deep desire and to help everybody out there to learn more and just become a better golfer. So please give it up and give a big Golf 360 welcome to my guest today, top 100 coach, Mr. Brian Manzella. What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Golf 360 podcast. I'm the host, Pete Popovich. So you may be asking yourself, what is Golf 360? And Golf 360 is a show that was designed to introduce you to people associated with the game of golf to help you improve not only at your game, but also your life. Almost all of our guests are from within the industry in some way, shape, or form, but some of the guests we have are from outside the industry, and it mainly revolves around the business world with a few others scattered in here and there. Now, all of the guests that we have a few things in common. One, they all were highly successful and accomplished in their field. Two, each has something to pass along that will help you in your game and your life. And three, they were all more than willing to give back by passing along the things that they use to help them in their career and even some of the mistakes that they made so that others don't make them in their journey. So I hope you find listening to them as enjoyable as I did interviewing them, and that each and every one of you benefits from the information that they so willingly and graciously pass along. Hey, everybody. I want to give a big shout out to a new sponsor of the Golf 360 podcast, and that's Affinity Wealth Management Group. We all work exceptionally hard for our money, and none of us can afford to let that fall into the dark abyss of the big box financial service firms and their jack of all trades and master of none mantra, which basically means you become a number within a cookie cutter model that's also often accompanied by massive fees. Your future deserves more than average returns and little attention. At Affinity Wealth Management, they ensure that your financial goals receive highly individualized, tailored attention from experts, not just advisors, who are in the industry to be great and not average. As a client of Affinity Wealth, you receive a customized solution to your customized life, keeping in mind your family's financial situation, values, and risk tolerance. Call Affinity Wealth today for a no-cost consultation with one of their experts at 724-754-8200. Again, that's 724-754-8200. Or you can also check them out on the web at www.affinitywealthmg.com. That's AFFINITYWEALTHMG.com. This podcast is brought to you in part by Just Thrive Probiotic. You may be surprised to learn that your digestive system is the key to creating and maintaining the quality of your physical, mental, and emotional health, and it's one of the body's most essential systems. That's why the majority of nutritionists today highly recommend probiotics as an indispensable nutritional supplement. As a discriminating consumer, you've probably been searching for a probiotic that is proven, potent, and effective, and you found it. Just Thrive is your best choice for maintaining a healthy lifestyle. Just Thrive Probiotic captures the power of hundreds of thousands of years of nature's design with a specialized bacillus strain formulation that guarantees survivability through the stomach and upper digestive system. Supports optimum gut health, digestive health, immune health, and delivers antioxidants. Great for adults, kids, and the whole family. Use promo code GOLF360 at www.thriveprobiotic.com for 10% off your order. All right, Brian Manzella is here. Brian, welcome to the show. Very, very happy and excited to have you.
Great to be on with you, Pete. You do a good job, and I've been wanting to be a guest for a while, so I'm glad this is the day.
Let me ask you this, since this is making such big news nowadays, and that's what Bryson just did in about a week ago, or this past weekend with the long drive, where he's not the first golfer to go, that's a PGA Tour player, to go to a long drive. I mean, if I understood it correctly, there were a number many years ago but it was part of incorporating PGA Tour pros into long drive. But I mean, he now that they're separate disciplines, so to speak, he is not just gone in as some kind of sideshow. He's actually gone in and competed to get to the final 8. So I'd be very curious to hear your thoughts on Bryson, since he's such a interesting figure, and you've never, as far as I could tell, have shied away from giving some very, very good and influential input.
That's nice of you to say, but the basic thing I would say is about I played in two actually back-to-back long hitters. Like that. I'm trying to remember the years here, but somewhere in the 87 range, I played with Art Sellinger, and he had won the. By then it was a sport to itself, right? The long drive.
Right.
I played with him. We played a casual round. I picked him up at the airport. He was a big old guy back then. And we played a good little Pete Dye course in the area. And we played in an exhibition the next day in a scramble on the same team. And then about a year or two before that, I played with another guy. I can't think of the guy's name, but he came and they needed somebody to play with them. And I was working in the shop, basically assistant pro, but I was still playing college golf. And they said, Brian, dress up and go play with this guy because there's going to be 100 people watching. So, I was still entertaining the idea. I was already teaching at both times. I was already teaching golf, and I was already thinking of myself as maybe a player at some point, like everybody does. And there were very, very different disciplines then. Because they had already kind of separated. They had that one with Evan Williams and a bunch of tour players. Harry Toscano, I remember, he was a big hitting guy from the Pittsburgh area. But there was just no way those guys at some point were going to be tour players. Even when Sadlowski was kind of going, he wasn't a tour player. Now he's working on that part of his game now, but I mean, it was just too different. But then people started hitting the ball far on tour for lots of reasons. You could do a whole podcast on that. And Bryson decided that he wanted to take advantage of what the numbers were saying, which is if you hit it this much further, you're going to shoot this much lower. It's math. And he had a lot in the gear. I tell a lot of people this, and I have on the phone, no names of how I got it. Before he got on tour, before he lifted a whole bunch of weights, him doing the single plane golfing machine back of the 6th edition pattern, 117 mile an hour swing. And then he had a crank swing that was like 125 or 6. So now he's like 133 or something average on tour. So, I mean, it's not really that hard to figure out where all of those extra yards came from. He got stronger. Let's say that was 3 miles an hour. I'm pretty sure if I started lifting weights right now, I'm soft as the Pillsbury Doughboy, right? 3 miles. So your crank swing plus 3 is, let's say, 128. He stopped trying to do that limited, swing just to keep the club. Literally, he was as close as anybody we've ever measured with Jacobs 3D. But to be in actually one plane, he was doing it. The swing we have is with an iron. I'm sure it was a little different with the driver, but still it was pretty close. So just making a normal backswing, letting his right arm fly a little bit and letting the club make a normal arc at the top of the swing, that's probably worth 2 miles an hour. So now you're 130, right? And then he trained for it, right? He altered pre-shot, the speed of the swing on the backswing, which people don't understand, has something to do with the loading of your muscles and all this kind of stuff. But there's your 133. So I think it's great that he's brought some attention to long drive that wasn't there, and that he's trying to hit the ball further on tour, something that's not, taboo. There's a limit, right? And I think he knows that there's a limit. At some point, it just goes too crooked, but he hadn't reached that point yet. And the one last thing I'd like to say is I kind of like baseball cap pricing. I think he did himself a lot of good. I think he did himself a lot of good with how he handled himself at the Ryder Cup. And he was very easy to root for, having been a big fan of his for a couple of years for a number of reasons. And I think I'm not definitely in some like little small car there, Mm-hmm. And I mean, similarly acting sort of different than his little persona was in the long drive. I think he ditched that Hogan cap and he'd be the most popular player in golf right now, and then win him some more majors and maybe win a long drive. So I think it's great. Good for him.
Scott Cox was on about a month or so ago, and he said that being out on tour and watching how hard Bryson works and all the things he does, he said he will eventually be the number one player in the world. It's almost inevitable. That's saying a lot, given the talent out there. But I guess that's based off his work ethic and his willingness to do what he deems necessary, or what those around him are advising him that he needs to do. If he comes to them and says, all right, here's a deficiency I have based off the data that we've compiled. How do I get better at this? And then he does it. He listens. If he buys into it, he's going to listen. He's obviously a very smart individual.
Yeah, and I think there's other guys that are smart that just don't use big words in a sentence that are on tour. I just want to pump the brakes a little bit on that. I think that the golf talent and the ability to Sean Webb, who's a friend of mine, has called it the gift. There's just something about somebody who can play tournament golf, and then somebody that could stand right next to him on the driving range and take the TrackMan combine against him for $100 a ball, and basically play just hit the ball just as well on the range. And I think there are people that have more of that gift than he does. So, I mean, you can outwork, right? Hogan always said, you either have to outthink them, outwork them, or whatever, whatever the quote was, that you get it. The work ethic has something to do with it. But you got guys out there like Sam Burns, who I think have more golf talent, scoring golf talent than he does. And I think Zalatoris is up there. I mean, there's a bunch of guys. Nobody really, just think about the predicting in the distance. you would have thought Justin Thomas would have won more than one major at this point.
Right. I would agree.
One. I don't like what he's doing with his backswing, but that's another subject for another time. But he's obviously good enough to have won more than one. To me, he's just as good a golfer as Bryson. I mean, he's definitely just as good a golfer as Bryson DeChambeau, or better golfer, and he's just as good a golfer as Brooks Koepka, no doubt. I mean, I knew him when he was 8 years old. He was a golf pro when he was 10, man. I'm telling you, if you would have told me he was going to be a long enough hitter, I would have predicted more than he's done. So, Jordan Spieth, right? Who would have thought that he would have went up all these crazy roads? I see that he's getting a lot of it back. Good. But nobody really knows until the swing breaks, which everybody swing breaks for whatever million reasons. We're human. And I would pump the brakes on he's definitely going to be no. I would say he's definitely going to be nothing, but he's a top 5 guy in the world right now. And I wouldn't have said that even a couple of months ago. If when the gun goes off, it's not some silly setup or something like that. And like I said, I'm pulling for baseball cap Bryson. So I'll leave it at that.
You are one who does a lot of homework. You do a lot of research. You have it's obvious that you have a deep passion for what you do, coaching and instruction. And maybe that's the Italian in you, the passionate side. And one thing that I
hate that word, by the way. I appreciate I literally hate that word because it's used so much. It's like, pat me on the head and call me passionate and stick me over in that corner. I'm not saying you're doing that, but I feel like I've said this 100 times, so I'm going to say it 101 right here.
Okay.
I wanted to be the best before I gave my first lesson. I decided I was going to do it, kind of lucked into figuring out that I could. And I don't see what I'm trying to do is that much different than what Michael Jordan tried to do, or some guy named Marty McFlurd that was trying to do it in some other profession or some other sport or some other discipline, and he didn't get anywhere, right? I haven't gotten anywhere near the top. I mean, I'm up these lists, somewhere in the middle of the top 50 and all this kind of stuff for a while. But I don't really think that if you put a lie detector test on everybody that you're going to have on that's an instructor in the last, that you would have over a year period of time or 2 year period of time. If you put them on a lie detector test and say, do you really want to be the guy? I don't think that many people really want to be the guy. There are guys who are way more thought of, right now anyway, for all the reasons that people think of people different ways in my profession, that if you stuck a mic in front of them and told them they had to talk for 2 hours straight every week, they'd have a heart attack. I would love it. So I just don't think there's just that many people. I know Michael Jacobs is like that. He doesn't want to do he doesn't want to travel, and you'd rather not talk for 2 hours a day, but he wants to be the best. So there's some people that want to be the best and they want the mic. There's some people that want to be the best and not want the mic. I want the cake and eat it too. That's the way I look at it. And that's always going to make me look just enough different. The fact that I'm a little different anyway, and quirky in my own little ways that obviously I've developed over 59 years, I think, but passionate. If you're not passionate and you're doing this job, you are in the wrong profession, because you're going to have a guy who's got all the talent in the world for your 10 o'clock lesson and just never worked with anybody that knows anything, and you're going to be able to make that guy better almost right away. And then you're going to have a gal who, wants to play tournament golf, but she's like 110 pounds and no way to get doesn't have the frame to get stronger and probably can't, hit it far enough to compete, and then you're going to have somebody who can't stand the game, but they have to play because their boss likes all one behind the other,
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not really digging what you're doing, you surely couldn't do it for the 38 years I've been fooling around, because it is the damn goofiest, weirdest business, stupidest business I've ever heard of. And there are a lot of teachers who might not come on your show and say that, but they say it to me on the telephone. So you better be passionate.
Well, I should use a different word, and it's a deep-seated desire to improve. At least that's what it looks like from the outside. And you're following something that's of interest to you.
There's no doubt about that. There's no way. Hogan said that the fun in golf was improving. The fun in teaching is improving.
Mm-hmm.
And since I have not given up on my golf game yet, maybe at some point I'll get, I'm going to be 60 in December if the Lord says the same. But the fun is learning something new and it helping people, including those people would include myself. It's fun to learn.
And well, along with that, you somewhat alluded to, and as I did as well, is you are not ashamed or hesitant to put your information out there because you have done a lot of homework and you've done a lot of your research, and in your desire, as the word we'll use, to improve and to share with others, I think that goes hand in hand with you saying, hey, here's what I know, or at least I think I know, and here's what I found. I think this will help. And if I disagree with somebody, then, hey, let's have a discussion or a back and forth, a debate, whatever you want to call it, because it's going to be for the betterment. One of us is going to learn something, or both of us are going to learn something. The game's going to grow, and the students are going to learn a lot from it, or other coaches are going to learn. And I think everybody has to applaud you and anyone else that does something like that.
Except, I agree with everything you just said 100%, except the fact that day has, at least temporarily, went away. There's no real no real ongoing, fairly, like on the internet, right? Stuff that goes on every day. Mm-hmm. New controversy every day, right? So
that's the fuel for the social media.
Right. But I'm just saying on any subject, right? Mm-hmm. So what I'm saying is there's no place that I've seen in the last at least couple of years that somebody says this is a way, like we were talking about speed before because of Bryson, right? Well, there's the internet. There might be a word. In my mind, this is what I'm seeing. I'm seeing like a bingo thing where the person's turning the wheel, like an old school bingo thing, and the balls are all going around. There's none of that going on the internet on speed. There's a couple of guys and probably gals who are supposedly speed experts and have pro speed training programs and stuff like this. One of them, no names, it's just one of them came along right when the debate was being killed by other things that we'll talk about, I'm sure. And I'm telling you, I have not seen one conversation anywhere on the internet. Guy went from, I knew who he was, to he's pretty well known as a speed expert, and not one single thread that I ever seen anywhere where somebody went, I was looking at a couple of those things, and I don't know. And then the guy would defend it, and another guy would come in and say, well, I can see what that guy's saying about the problem. I've had this. And then another guy come in and say, yeah, but I've sent people to this guy, and he's where's a normal that has gone away. The famous war has taken all the air out of the room, and nobody wants to wind up on the cutting room floor of one of those things. And I can tell you, I don't blame them.
And that's the Alpha War.
Yes.
The tag that it's gotten.
Yeah, I named it. I'm very good at naming things. When I hear it called the Alpha Wars, I went, oh God, there's only one. I can't handle two. I couldn't live through a second one, crying out loud. But yeah, it's what else would you call it, right? If you want to just put a moniker on something, it named itself pretty much. But no, we'll talk about it in a second. But what I wanted to say is, if somebody said, what do I miss the most that used to go on is actual, you don't even have to call it debate, discussion, spirited discussion about something in the golf swing. Like, there was spirited discussion, about stack and tilt at some point. Are you better off, just staying on the left foot the whole swing? I had my opinion. It was very different than those guys' opinion. We argued about it, sometimes passionately, sometimes loudly. I can say Andy Plummer, a friend of mine now, and I think most of what they do is very good. So, and I don't think he thinks I'm an idiot when it comes to the golf swing either. And so that just shows you how that can happen, right? That can happen. Frederick Tuxton told me early on, and I don't think he'd mind me repeating this, when I asked him some advice when all the war first started, he said, you be careful now, and be nice as you can, because some of those people are going to be your best customers one day, because that happened to him, right? He came in with this product, and it was, really, it was very similar. He had a very similar reception. It was, I remember people like arguing with Frederick Tuxton over impact for 2 hours at the merchandise show. I'm not going to mention any names, but people that know, people know who it was. And there ain't anybody doing that now. So he had a point, but talking about golf, if you're a doctor and you think, this is probably going on with medicine right now, because if you're on one side or the other of the vaccine thing, it's political now. So you can't even have probably, I'm sure they do amongst themselves, but you can't even have a discussion about that anymore, because like, oh, you're this or you're that, I'm sure there's legitimate discussion when it comes to the best way to treat this awful disease. So, I miss it. I hope it comes back one day. I hope that I have something to do with bringing it back.
Well, I hope at least that this show can, in the effort to help educate everybody, which is the sole purpose why I started this show. I think I told a friend of mine or mentor of mine, whoever it was, I said, look, the podcast is probably the first thing I've done, and I started caddying when I was 11. I've worked ever since, and I just turned 49. So I said the podcast is probably one of the first things I've ever done, work-wise, that making money was not in the top 10. It wasn't even in the top 100 things of the reason I did it. I said the sole purpose for this was to get a lot of different people from all different facets of golf that were or in the process of being very successful, and give their story and help other people improve at their game in life. And that was the entire mantra, or is the entire mantra of this show. So hopefully, I maybe in some small way, I can do my part in bringing some of those things back and give all the sides, whatever discussion it is, some type of voice, and kickstart that and be a part of it. I'd love to be able to do that, because it is for everyone's betterment, improvement, education, the whole litany of other things.
There's plenty to learn when anybody has got an idea, strong grip versus weak grip. I mean, that looked like that thing was going one way. If you listen to the guys who, Brandel Chambly, right? Mm-hmm. He's found this Kelvin Mia Harris spinoff, right, of Jeff Martin and Lucas Wald, and they tried to do it as a business. I guess it's kind of tough, with the parties involved, but he thinks he has found gold, and he's got a bully pulpit, and he's going to promote this like it's going out of style. I heard Lucas on somebody's podcast for a couple minutes yesterday because I was driving back and forth across the world's longest bridge, picking up a car. But those guys think it's strong. The grip's strong, and it's going stronger, and strong is great, and super strong, and strong. Yet, John Rahm, Morikawa, right? These guys have really weak grips. So it's obviously not going just towards strong. I would have bet that it was going to take a long time for a very neutral left-hand grip to the club face to come back. It's back. Mm-hmm. Now what? You got Bryson with a pretty neutral grip. You got, Morikawa, and you got Rahm, and there's probably a couple others. I just not thinking off the top of my head real clear. But That's a legitimate debate. What's better? If you take, one of the things I like to do, Pete, is who are we talking about here? Are we talking about tour players? Or are we talking about regular players? Because you could do both things. Like say, okay, let's say we're talking about regular players. Okay, you're going to go 100 random golfers and you're going to make them grip it like Morikawa. Not super duper duper weak, but weak. Mm-hmm. And then you're going to take in a vacuum those same golfers in a time machine, and you're going to give them a strong grip, not as strong as Lucas Wall, motorcycle grip. He's a teacher now, not a player, but you understand, like Ed Fiore strong, or pretty strong. So okay, now you're going to teach 100 players that which group is going to hit it better right away, which group is going to hit it better a month from now, which group is handicaps are going to go which way in the next year, and 10 years from now you come back, how many of them are still doing the grips? Right. That's the way I try to evaluate things. It's a little obsessive compulsive, I'll admit. I'm obsessive compulsive. So, but yet, right, even something as simple as that is not being discussed anywhere. It's poo-pooed. First, let's start with this before I give myself credit for doing something poor and, having some part in shutting down internet discussion. The powers that be in the industry, very nervous about legitimate debate. Very nervous. So you get that vibe if you try to get to the top of the industry. You don't have to go too far up to get into the little stratosphere of the golf powers that be. The people who really make the decision at the PGA of America level, the people who make the decisions at both magazines, the Golf Channel, all of that stuff, they don't want it. They really don't want it. Ben Doyle was my mentor, and I have on my computer a scanned letter from the then president of the PGA of America that basically said this in so many words. Ben, don't ask any more questions at any of the PGA teaching and coaching summits, or you might not be able to attend them in the future. Thank you very much, president of the PGA. That's a stone fact.
Well, that's some bullshit. That kind of defeats the whole purpose of teaching.
Summit. Isn't a summit like a bunch of the world leaders get together, the G7 summit, and say, hey, I think these oil prices are going the wrong way. What do you think over there, Mr. Russia? Well, I kind of like it because we got oil, What do you think over there, Mr. France? Well, we like, green energy, but, it's making the price of crepes go way, way up. Isn't that what happens at a summit? But they did not want Ben. I don't know what they do, but the crepe prices are going up. Belgium bagels are going up in Belgium, for crying out loud. And because of the oil prices, let's do something. We're the G7 or the G8 or whatever it is. But that's the golf business. They really don't want it because. And Michael Jacobs is the person who said this, and this is a brilliant one-sentence take. The powers that be in the golf business are not trying to save golf. They're trying to save their jobs this month. Well, you could mark that down with a Sharpie on a T-shirt.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think if you polled 100 people, probably 99 of them would say in pick any industry you want in the world now, and that would suffice to say would be true or hold true. It would just turn on the news and you can see that, right?
Yet all the networks have a couple of highly rated shows that the premise of the show is Brian is saying, I'm telling you, Jameis Winston, you need to let him go. You need to let him throw the ball deep. And Pete Popovich is saying, he's got to learn to play Drew Brees style ball. Like the whole show is two guys arguing, or two gals, or one gal and one guy arguing because people like watching it. Mm-hmm. Yet in the golf business, it's like, oh my God, they're arguing about upright versus flat. Hey, can y'all just can we go eat a bagel or something? Just not talk about it.
That's a very good point. John Sinclair, I met John at Andrew Rice's coach camp a few years ago before all this COVID craziness. But John opened up his lecture with, he had been reading it in the newspaper that morning. Somebody had come up with, and I'll probably butcher this, and John, don't get too mad at me for not remembering the specifics. It was something about something in the scientific world that a group had gone in and discovered or found something that everybody else said would probably didn't exist. And they were being a lot of appreciative, a lot of thanks, a lot of being heralded as, wow, this is awesome. And he said, why is it in the golf business when, in particular in the coaching and instruction business, when somebody comes up with an idea that seems to be working and might revolutionize to some extent how things are taught, how come a large portion of the industry will try to tear them down? And he said, it's a shame that our industry can't be more, as it's leaning to scientific endeavors, be more like the scientific industry and says, hey, that's some great work. Now, before we all push it, let's have some peer reviews and some other things like that. And he had, in my opinion, a very good point. It's
except for the fact, it's a stone cold misrepresentation of the scientific community. There was stuff that Newton, I don't know if it was Newton or Einstein, but there's two guys you're picking if you want to start in five, right? One of those guys had a bitter rival, and he didn't even publish some of his best stuff until the other guy died because he hated him so much he didn't want him to know any of it. So look, most of what goes on when there's problems is, as Ben Doyle used to teach me about, the human condition. There's the actual what the problem is or the disagreement or whatever it is, and then everything else is just the human condition. In other words, it could be people arguing about who's the next football coach at LSU just as much as whether upright or flat or left weight or right weight or, long hitting or accuracy should be, more important, right? All that other stuff is just the same reason why if you go on Google Earth and you spread out to enough of a view, the United States of America, why were there all these different states? When they all like come in the same boat, they were part of England colonization. No, but there was lines. There was lines, and I don't think Arkansas and Texas are best friends.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying they were part of the 13 colonies. I wasn't that bad at social studies, but you see what I'm saying? I mean, there's borders and there's real wars, and then that's the human condition. What the underlying stuff is probably a little bit more basic, but the idea that the scientific community is all of these kumbaya people and they all throw their work in the middle of the table and everybody looks at, that's a lie. That's not the case. The more we've looked into it, I'm not saying the guy who said what you just said was lying. I'm just saying people who say that don't really know that they argue to the death in the scientific community and the academic scientific community, particularly because there's so little money involved and they all pretty much ain't losing their jobs. So they can be brutal. There's some law, there's some rule like, Murphy's Law, or something will go wrong, it will. There's some law about the argument. The less capital involved in the argument, the more bitter, the argument is. And that's true of academic and scientific stuff. In the golf business, it's just poo-pooed. That's at the end of the day, they have all of these summits, the top 100 that I've been lucky enough to make like 6 times in a row now, are going to have this, thing in November after, COVID year didn't have anything last year. So it's every 2 years anyway. And there's no, okay, we're going to get 6 people up here, 3 people or 2 people, and we're going to argue about something. No, that's the last thing in the world they would do. I would do it, right? I would, if I was putting on the party, I would say, well, here's a good chance to get rid of, arguing about what we should do about the ball, right? Because I have some very dear friends that are 100% sure we have to, make everything go shorter because, classic courses and all that stuff. I don't really think so. But it would be a heck of a debate, but that doesn't, the best thing that ever happened at a PGA Teaching and Coaching Summit, I've been to all of them except one, and that was because the Saints were playing in that horrible game where they stole it from us and the Ram guy interfered with Tommy Lee Lewis. But it was an actual scheduled debate. There was a few of them, and they all stunk. They stunk because there wasn't debating. It was like a joke, right? It was like, okay, you and your best friend argue about the color of pants. Unless you got some loudmouth like me in there, you're not going to have much of an argument there. You're going to say, okay, well, what am I supposed to say? I'm supposed to say light color pants, and Jacobs is going to take dark color. No. Jimmy Ballard and Jimmy Ballard and Jim Flick debated body swing versus the arm swing. And there's only 2 times in my life was I ever in a building where everybody was sitting on chairs and it was the normal procedure, meaning that 99.9% of the time people are sitting on chairs. Movie theater. The first time I saw Rocky, I didn't even want to go to the movie. I didn't know what it was about. Buddies dragged me in the middle of the week. And at the end of the movie, in the fight scene, people were standing up, cheering like it was a real fight, and we had to stand on our damn chairs to see over them to watch the fight. And that's exactly what happened with the Jim Flick, Jimmy Ballard thing. And, everybody thought Flick got beat up on, and I'm more of a Ballard guy than a Flick guy, rest Mr. Flick's soul. But a friend of mine has all the tapes and sent me a DVD copy of that debate. And hey, man, it's pretty close to a draw. It would have definitely been a split decision no matter what, either way. So you think that would have went, they would have, the people, Rick Martino was running the PGA education at that point, and I had a lot of disagreements with him, but, I think, he wouldn't, I don't have anything against him. I mean, he had reasons to do what he was doing. And you would have thought, man, look at this. I got people falling asleep at 3:00, and now we got this thing happening at 3:00, and people are jumping up and down and screaming and cheering. And it's like, we got to do more of this. No. They never did another one, man. That was it. So that's the golf business debate thing in a nutshell. Now, the internet sort of cured that, like when I started my forum in 2003, I had been kicked off a couple forums. That's not all for stuff that I did. And, I'm undefeated arguing about the golf swing. So I didn't have I had a pretty good time. The only time I've ever lost is when I won and then came back and said, you know what? Yo, we're right. So, but my forum became like everybody that you probably would talk about in the golf swing world now was on that forum one way or the other. They either had a name like, Gesundheit. Nobody knew who Gesundheit was, or, they were, somebody that you knew who it was. Some people made their names on that forum, not just people that I was associated with. So we pretty much argued about everything, and it was great. It wasn't good. It was great. And you ain't talking to me if it wasn't for that forum. I bullied my way through the glass ceiling that they had put there for, a driving range teacher. I mean, I've been at English Term for 13 years now, which is a nice place, but I was a driving range instructor with nothing to trade. This is a trade business. If you don't think it's a trade business, I promise you the third assistant at Oakmont has gotten more free stuff from the companies in the last 10 years than me. And I've been on both lists for the last 10 years because, all I can do is give you a golf lesson, but that guy can get you on Oakmont. Right. So I basically argued my way all the way up to the list where you basically get, a lot of people call me because they know it took me a long time. Say, Brian, how do you do it? How do you get on these lists? My students are playing good. They're winning tournaments and blah, 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 blah. And I said, listen, here's how you get on the list. You make it where the preponderance of the evidence is, he's on, right? I mean, at some point, they just have to put you on, or it makes the list look bad. It's like, whoa, wait a minute, he's not on. Everybody knows he's one of the 50 or 100, right? That's how you get on, and that's how I got on, and it was because of the internet. And now, the same internet, and a lot of people cheered for this, right? The same internet came back and bit me in the, well, not just the rear end. Every other part of my body too.
Let's talk a little bit about that. And as we mentioned, you coined it the Alpha War. From an outsider's perspective, myself, it's two groups, both very smart, who have a disagreement in large part on the forces and the torques that happen or where they're applied throughout the swing. Is that a fair assessment, or am I missing something? And this is more for the people who are listening that aren't maybe deep into the instructional world or follow these things regularly. Maybe they're real good golfers, or they're just learning. They're tuning in a golf show for the first time. But is that a fair assessment, or do I have it wrong?
You have it exactly like the other side of the Alpha War would want you to think of it.
Okay.
In other words, the Alpha War, if you boiled it down to one thing, was there's a scientist named Stephen Nesbitt that knows how to take a 3D capture of just a golf club. All you need is a golf club to do the part that we're talking about here. We're doing the body now too with Jacob's 3D, but just to stay on point here, which I almost never do. You have this guy that knows how to figure out when you take a swing with a 7-iron. You're a good player, and you probably still are. And you hit this shot, and you go, that's the shot. That damn shot kept me from making it. That right push, junk, thin, whatever. Right? I'm just making something up.
Right.
And we have that swing. He figured out how to, working for the USGA and the National Golf Foundation, how to determine what the forces and torques were that you put in the club. The Alpha War is there were at least a couple of people, and you can define a couple any damn way you want. 2 is a minimum. It can be whatever number you want more than that. That didn't know how to do it. And the way Dr. Nesbitt did it. And they were due. I mean, everything else happened after that, and they still don't. Right? So that's it. That's the Alpha War. You have this Frederick Tuxton figured out how to take this. I don't know if you've ever seen these raw captures of this radar, right? Mm-hmm. And now he uses cameras too. But let's just go back to the days when TrackMan was just radar and not the camera was just something that you line the thing up with. Because I've been, I've had them all. TrackMan 2, TrackMan 3, 3E. I got my second 4 right down there in the studio here. He figured out how to do something, and the number one competitor had 80 different people. That's what they told me, working on trying to figure out how to. They never really ever did it. They never actually figured out what he was doing. And there was a little war there too that went to court and had lawyers involved and all that stuff. And eventually that's how a lot of these things get solved. Unfortunately, that's why, you get hit in the back in a wreck and you say you got a crick in the neck. But that's it. That's the Alpha War. One group of people know how to do something that another group of people want to learn how to do or figure out how to do. Everything else is the human condition. This idea that there's this two different, no. The other stuff didn't even exist. And so Steve figured out how to do this. Dr. Stephen Nesbitt, I'm just calling him Steve. But Steve figured out how to do this, and the other guys called him and tried to figure out how to do it. And then it became a business with Michael Jacobs and myself, as a non-owner, kind of partner in the thing. And everything else is just normal human stuff. Ambition, jealousy, all that other stuff. There's no reason to even go into all the other things that people that leave us far short of the man upstairs. Well, that's pretty much it.
Let me ask you this question, because if it's, and this is from somebody looking at it from, I'm not the 10,000 feet vision, but because I I do teach and coach, and I have an understanding of swing. But as I'm watching this, and the way I look at it, because I've seen a number of Michael Jacobs videos, and I've seen a number of, I'll name some of the people. We're not naming them to throw them under the bus by any means, but like Sasho's videos, Doc McKenzie, Michael Finney stuff, and but mostly, and I see how, and I'm thinking, well, if it's science, and all this is backed by science, how can two sides be so completely at odds with one another? I guess that would be one question that I'd have.
Because they don't know how to do it. It's obvious. Look, I didn't want to be like, so I was kind of coaching myself. Like, I'm going to be me. So remember the conversation I had earlier about Andy Plummer. So I consider Andy a friend. Okay. Is he a buddy? We're going to go hang out no, but I guarantee you we would have dinner and have a great time talking shop. And we had hours of phone calls and texts and stuff like that. He's a friend. At some point, he was completely an adversary, no doubt. So those guys stick together. The Stack and Tilt community is a great community for Stack and Tilt. They're very loyal. They promote each other. They defend each other online. It's great. So they are not the biggest fans. I'll just think I'm not going too far. I don't like speaking for other people. They're not the biggest fans of the other side, right? And the other side is, those other guys, not Jacobs and Manzella and Nesbitt. They're not, for other reasons. I'm only thinking that they don't even give a damn about the Force and Torque part. So there was a period of time in this 7-year war, because it started pretty much 7 years ago, that they would at least talk about it from time to time. They would look at those guys, make a post, and then they would weigh in and kind of stick a needle in this, that, or the other, right? And then one day, me and a guy who that I've mentored a little bit, and Mike Jacobs has mentored, and is a smart guy and tries to learn from everybody, named Danny Calamar, sort of like put our foot down, and we were derided for it, and said, listen, the other side is not even trying to do a move and reference frame thing. So it's like apples and grapefruits. Let's see it. We've been arguing for 5 years, 6 years, whatever it was at that point. Mm-hmm. So they came out with one, okay? They produced one of a really high-end player swinging like 91 or 2 miles an hour with a 7-iron. So like, a real swing, not, right. Some little broken down club pro like me. And the person, the data said that person never, from just after transition all the way to impact, ever put force on the backside of the shaft, what I always called, since before the science era, force across the shaft. I don't know this, so I'm going to go out on a limb and say, please forgive me, Andy, if I got this wrong. But Andy Plummer's a pretty smart guy, too. He looked at that and went, uh-oh, that means Manzella and them have been right all along. Boys, no more talk about forces and torques. They haven't said a damn word about it since, because they're golfing machiners, and golfing machine has this principle called club head lag, and everybody thinks club head lag is how much angle you have, but club head lag, that's accumulator lag. Club head lag is just the fact that you have this club head that's at a distance from your hands, and somewhere more near the club head, the way golf clubs are designed, is the center of mass of the club. And if you shove the handle forward, pull the handle forward, whatever, if you move the handle forward, the club responds by what I call blowback. The club head goes the other way, around the center of mass. They sort of rotate around the center of mass. And that creates what Homer Kelly called club head lag pressure. Well, their whole golf swing thing is about club head lag pressure. They know it exists. This one-time effort to shut me and Danny Calamar up because we kept asking for something they had never produced a swing with no force across the shaft. That's impossible. It's wrong. I don't care how it came out, who did it. It doesn't even matter. Everybody who's smart, who's actually paid attention, at that point went, ugh. And including those guys that I'm talking about, the Andy and and I wouldn't listen. I don't blame Andy and them for shutting up after that, because what the hell? I mean, it's a business. Why would they be helping us? Right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're competitors,
right.
But it, they would love to have and look, one of the things you'll hear, I'm sure you maybe have already heard this, is, well, science says you have to let the other person duplicate. And if you don't do that, then it's commerce. I don't give a shit, and don't bleep that out, what it's called. I just want it to be right. I don't give a damn if you call it Ishkabibble. TrackMan ain't giving anybody their damn logarithm. I'm using the son of a gun in every lesson for the last 12 and a half years. So I just want the damn thing to be right. And it's right. No matter what goofy swing I've ever made. And I will say this, the Alpha War made us get a lot smarter. Michael Jacobs went, if you told me that it was possible to know 100% of this subject, okay? Steven Nesbitt doesn't know 100% of the subject because he knows 100% of the math and like 50% of the golf. Right? So that probably gives him a 91, right? Mm-hmm. And Michael knows probably 95% of the golf, maybe more than that. And like now it's like, I don't know, 70% of the math, knows 100% of the math, but can explain 70% of it. But that puts him underneath Steve, but, in some ways more because, whatever he is, let's say he's an 80 of a possible God has 100, then he was, half of that 3.5 years ago. So the constant competition in the public eye on this subject has made him do things that you probably wouldn't have seen him do if it wouldn't have happened. So you could say it actually probably helped us long term. It made me learn stuff that I wouldn't have otherwise learned. And it also probably couldn't have happened if he was a married guy with kids. He's a single man right now. You never know, right? There's a pretty girl in every street corner. So, but I'm just saying, he does well and he has resources. And Dr. Steve is a full-time employee now. Dr. Steve retired from Lafayette College and now is, he's always been the chief technical officer of that partnership of Jacobs 3D, but he's now an employee, pay stubs and all that stuff. So they want you to believe that a guy, Steven Nesbitt, who had this unbelievable amount of resources that the USGA gave him then, I would say I don't know how to do the math on, how much $1 million would be now, but if they spent $3.5 million in 1988, it has to be at least 10 now, probably more than that, right? Maybe 15.
Right.
So 10 to 15 million dollars, a team of scientists working for you, a world famous mechanical engineer, PhD, who said out loud, and I will ask him this question again when we do this seminar on November 1st that I want to talk about. I'm going to ask him so that everybody can hear it. It goes on the permanent record of the world. He says he could have never figured out how to do the club program unless he had this robotics knowledge and skill that he has. So they want you to believe somebody with an exercise science degree, however smart a guy he is, nobody's discounting that, scooped a guy with $15 million, 12 scientists to help him, and Frank Thomas, the biggest doubting Thomas human being in the rest of his soul, he passed away this last year. He thought everybody was wrong about everything. That's the kind of guy Frank Thomas was. And, so it had to be right. It had to explain, okay, this is Arnold Palmer and this is Jack Nicklaus and here's what the data says. And it went, oh, yeah, So the premise of the whole thing is sort of like, it's an impossible premise to believe. And I think the reason why there are enough people who believe it is they want it to be right, right? I mean, me and Michael Jacobs are not non-aggressive, non-ambitious people. I'm half Italian, he's half Italian. we're two Goombas that they think are dumb. I'll take the one to lick test against the rest of the golf teaching industry for $1,000 a point. I'll quit teaching to do that. I don't think I'm going to get beat more than I win. And so I'm pretty sure Jacobs will do all right too. Not that they're not smart guys on both sides. It's just one of those things where, just like politics, right? You've seen this in the last year of politics, or more than that, since before that last election in the U.S., that blind allegiance to either side, when you know that they both got warts, bro. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Both sides of the argument have warts. Both, it's. We did a seminar. I say we because we were supposed to do a seminar. We were doing spring seminars every year, and then all of a sudden we got so busy and charge enough where it was like we were losing money to do a seminar, right? Instead of just having a couple teaching days. But we were doing these spring seminars. I guess we did 5 in a row, and this was one right after Mike's book came out, The Science of the Golf Swing, which had all the stuff that we were hiding a lot of stuff from the golf community until the book came out, because that's sort of like the world of that kind of stuff. You publish something, right? Mm-hmm. And so we were supposed to do this seminar. I think it was at Waikiki. I don't remember which, but some, Met section place. And Mike got the mumps, and he hit 104 fever. I was about to take him to the hospital, and he got just good enough for him to say, "Go get him, boy. You got the whole day," right? Mm-hmm. So I went and talked for 6 hours, and Luke Curdanine, who's I guess they call it the chief golf improvement officer, or whatever. He's like basically an instruction editor, but there's a new fancier name for that. Sorry, Luke. And he was in the audience, and I said, somebody asked me a question, and I said, look, at the end of the day, it's a lot of power to give one person, right? Or two people, right? But one person that's in the golf business. One guy has the ability to run a swing and give you the answer what the person did. The golf industry ain't down with that. The powers that be in the golf industry ain't digging that idea very much at all. That everything goes through exit 70 on the Long Island Expressway. It's the facts, but it's a tough pill to swallow for people. So if you otherwise don't dig me, or you don't dig Mike, or you don't dig us as a team, and you don't want all that power in our hands, you might join the other side and disagree with every damn word they say. And, what people need to understand is, in my spot, for the 7 years this has been going on, I don't think I could have really done too much different than I did. I don't own the thing. I know what I would have done if I would have been the owner. I'm not saying it would have worked, but Mike is a certain kind of cat. Talking about Michael Jacobs, he's a certain kind of cat. He's an immovable object. He's the world's most trustworthy person. I don't think anybody else could have gotten Steve to go into business with him. Any of those other guys, they all talked to Stephen Nesbitt before Stephen Nesbitt looked me and Jacobs in the eye when he saw the gears raw data and said, I think I can do something with this. They all talked to him before that. We had all gone to see him as a group at some point. I think the scientist person you mentioned had talked to him before any of us ever did. So everybody was trying to get to the point that Jacobs got to, and he chose Jacobs. There's a damn good reason. If you know those two guys, they're very much alike. I'm like neither one of them except from, the passion standpoint. I can't stand the words, but and wanting to get to the answers. You hear that with a lot of people. I just want the answers, but what they really want is they want us to lose, and they want the answers. Let me just make a prediction in case I, as I always say, trip down the stairs getting out of the studio here. If Michael Jacobs woke up in the morning and won the Powerball for $750 million and said, the one thing I'm going to do? I'm getting out of this deal. here's $5 million, Dr. Steve, and he walked the code over to the other side, they would talk worse about us than they do now. They would talk worse about us. I fully believe that. They want to win, and they're doing a pretty good job of getting at least two of the people on that side promoted. But it's hurt the rank and file person on the other side of the Alpha Wars careers, I think. If you look at the lists, they're not, both lists, talking about the two teacher lists, they're not really, like the other guys. It's like there's a stain on a lot of those. It's looked, they've been more, we're definitely, me and Jacobs are definitely not, pushovers, but it's been kind of heavy handed. And I think that's hurt some of those guys on the other side. And it's helped two of them. It's a long race. And when this is all said and done 20 years from now and people are writing about when all this went down, I think the only thing that I sort of wish would have happened is I wish that it would have been covered by the golf media, but they're not very interested. They'll tell you nobody else, but they'll tell you, Pete, if you ask any of them the question, is nobody's interested. That's a lie.
Yeah, it's like it's out there, and a lot of people are interested. The
only reason, let me just say this, and everyone hear your take. But the only reason some random super avid 15 handicapper with an $8,000 set of true spec clubs in his bag, taking lessons from a top 10 teacher right now as we speak, isn't interested, he doesn't know what it is. If somebody wrote a legitimate, I don't care how the piece would come out, to be honest with you. I don't care if it would make me look like the bad guy or Mike at the bad guy and those other guys. I don't care. If it was just an honest piece, it would help this thing a ton, because you shine a light on stuff and it has a certain, we call it vestibule whispering, hurts this thing long term. It helps certain people, no names, because some people are very good at whispering in the vestibule, meaning that like at a seminar, like everybody can't sit there the whole damn time. You got to go use the potty. You got to make a phone call on your cell phone. Your alarm just went off at your house, and they're better at that game than we are. I'll give them credit, man. They're top dog. You let them whisper to somebody, Pete, let me show you something here on my phone. We're looking at here is, you understand, in this paper. I heard somebody on your podcast say we're looking at captures from 2005. That almost made me tear all the ceiling tiles off my golf studio here with my bare hands. We've got 2,850 gears captures that have been run through Jacobs 3D. And one of them he just posted up the other day with somebody that's working with a well-known instructor right now. And he did something in the swing that I'd never seen. Mike said he saw it 3 or 4 times out of 2,850 swings. He saw 2 or 3 times. So you're not talking about data that's 2005. That paper, those captures were done way before that anyway. No, the argument all started when I posted up my swing. Well, it started before that. But you understand? The visible argument started when I posted up my swing and somebody said you couldn't do that. And then I said, "What do you mean I couldn't do that? I'll do it more than that. I was just trying to hit a regular shot. I'm a flawed golfer. let me make the mistake that I make worse than I normally make it," which I did. And then they knew we probably had something at that point, and they lost their mind. That's what I think. I think that they just absolutely I haven't run a bunch of swings myself. Like, I don't have the software on my computer. We're working on that, from a standpoint of a portable version, what they call a compiled version that doesn't have the code. Like when you run Photoshop, you're not running the code, right? Adobe ain't giving you that code. But you can go in and edit a picture and make my teeth whiter, right? Like that picture you put up of me. I got this one tooth that's like a different color, and I don't really make it whiter. I just make them the same color. But
you gotta own. You get old enough and you start to own your own shit, right? It's like
yeah.
Shit that bothers you your whole life. And like, no, that's me. That's who I am. Screw it. right? Like,
but I would just bury people I'm going to bury the golf industry in swings. I'm going to make swings every day and say, okay, guys and gals out there, which swing do you want me to make tomorrow? And I'm just going to keep putting the data out there. And that's good. That's what I would have done different. But we wasn't trying to help the other side figure out how to do it, to be honest with you.
Well,
it got more and more to the point where it was like, we ain't helping you guys.
You know, as someone looks at your stuff, and you've like the anti-summit deal that you started a while, and I don't remember how long ago that was, but
2010.
Okay, so
I think,
and two of the doctors who have the differing opinions that we're discussing, were on your panel, and
no. Anti-summit 1 did.
No, I'm talking about 2. Anti-summit 2.
Anti-summit 2, yes. You're correct. Yeah, the main 2 science people. Yes.
Yes. Is it did I mean, obviously, and I wasn't there. I was doing my walkabout from the golf industry about that time, and then I walked back. But did evidently, if they were on the panel, I would have to assume that they somewhat got along or exchanged ideas then. And did it go sideways right away, or was it? You mentioned that one of your swings sparked it, but it seemed like if they were on a panel then.
That was way before. Yeah, no, that was way before we had the software. So there were no. We were studying with Dr. Steve by then. You know, we had gone as a group. The first visit was Michael Finney, John Hardesty, Kevin Shields, Brian Manzella, and Michael Jacobs. I tried to do it in the reverse order, so I didn't look like I was trying to slight anybody. And then Michael Jacobs went back like a few months later. He's 2.5 hours away. So, I mean, you would go all the time too. So by the time of the anti-summit, there was a couple of visits that had already happened and several phone calls and Zooms and stuff like that, you know, by the time he did that, it was so early in the golf science era that there was nobody was even talking about it. I mean, what became the main so-called main difference, you know, they don't have force across the shaft at last parallel. So they'll tell you, oh, it's just right by the ball where it changed. The last parallel, it's fit to a plane, regardless of what they keep saying. And people do videos that look like they're doing a hostage video. It's fit to a plane. They make fun of the fact that we have a moving reference frame. So that tells you right there. If they're making fun of our reference frame, they're not using it. And none of that was known, talked about, or anything at that anti-summit. That was so early in the even that has been misrepresented. I'd love to talk about that too real quick, but no, there was no. Now, had Sasha McKenzie talked to Dr. Steve on the phone before then and try to get some questions answered? Yes, probably. The timeline that I think I know, yes, and I don't think it went great. You know, I don't think, you know, but I don't know. I never really have asked that question, but that's my understanding. So I think there was maybe, I don't think Dr. Steve would even care. Just the kind of guy that just doesn't care. But I think at that point, Sasha probably wasn't a big fan of him. So just as a guy, if nothing else. So, but no, everybody was doing their deal. The anti-summit 2 was not an anti-summit. So I got the idea for the anti-summit in this respect. We would go into these PGA teaching and coaching summits. And remember now, we're in the era, because you had the first one was in Dallas and the second one was in Nashville, and then they were in San Francisco. Then it was 3 times in a row. So it was every other year. So 6 years it was in New Orleans of all places. And then it went to Port St. Lucie and it stayed there for a long time. This is in the Port St. Lucie days. Ben Doyle got that letter from the president of the PGA to never ask any more questions. That was in the New Orleans days. So the summit had become so sanitized, nobody could even ask a question. So there was these people up there, whoever it was, I'm not, right? The famous teacher, an unfamous teacher, not a teacher, a player. They were the experts, and you couldn't even question their experts. And it drove the cuckoo, and I don't think Finney liked it very much either. So we had the idea, well, at least I think I had the original idea of not the panel of the scientists, but the idea that wouldn't it be great if you just had a moderator and we just said, okay, upright versus flat, who wants to take upright? Right? That was the so it's not a summit. See, like, so I think Claude Harmon III, he's not a big fan of mine. I've had lunch with him twice and he talked 6 words total. So Claude Harmon III, I remember somebody saying, was at some seminar saying, and they got people out there doing anti-summits. Well, you don't even know what an anti-summit is, Claude. Summit is, there's an endless line of experts and they talk and you listen. It's supposed to be they talk and you ask questions, but it had turned in the golf business to they talk, you listen. An anti-summit was just a name. I called it a Manzapposium, kind of sticking a needle at O'Grady, calling his thing symposiums. But the anti-summit was just the opposite. There was no speaker. The speakers were the audience. There was no speaker. And then the idea that, well, who's going to break the tie if somebody says, you can have a heavy hit, and then the other guy says, no, the club doesn't work like that down by the ball. You can't have a heavy hit. It doesn't matter. It's the ball. Club is like disconnected. It's like somebody swinging it on a string, right? That was a debate. That was the first debate at the first anti-summit. But we had these 3 guys, and it was Paul Wood from Ping with the clubs, Rob Neal from the biomechanics world, and Aaron Zick, who I had met, and the other Golfing Machine people met because Joe Daniels, who ran the Golfing Machine, brought him in to do talks, which basically were basically showing flaws in the book. It was kind of odd, but he's a real smart guy. So he was sort of like the third wheel, like tiebreaker of the other 2 guys too, because he would argue with anybody in a good way. And so the point of that was they were just going to be there if we said this and the other guy said that, and they said, well, what about this and what about that? In other words, they supposedly had no skin in the game. They're just experts in their fields, supposedly, and they would be like the panel. That was it. That was the idea of the anti-summit. But even by the time we started the damn thing, there was so much animosity in the golf business. A famous person who was, I'm going to leave all the names out. A famous person who was famous in the golf business, person who was asked to talk, was told by another famous person in the golf business that he did work for, that if you do this seminar with Manzella, and then you're never going to work for us again. 35 people attended this damn thing, and they were so scared of it, they told us they scared him to death. He didn't do it. So that's how we got another guy. So I'm not going to figure out who that is, and maybe you heard me tell the story when I said the names, but I'm trying not to do the name thing. So by the time of the second anti-summit, when I completely took ownership of it completely, because all I would ever do is argue about it with the other guy, is it became presentations. They all did. Dr. Steve did a presentation, and Aaron Zick did a presentation, and they all did, 6 guys did presentations. And it was just, everybody got to ask questions. And I had the mic and I wanted questions, but it was really just, that was more of a summit instead of anti-summit. The first one was more of an anti-summit. And sorry, Claude, you never tried to make it to number 1 from a driving range. It's not that easy. So you have to do things like
if you're coming from if you're starting from a different position, you can't do the same things that everybody else is doing and still stand out, right? If your starting block is X amount of yards, miles, whatever measurement system you want to use behind somebody else's, how do you make yourself stand out? without compromising the work you do. I mean, it's not like you're going to do something so off the wall. Like, you know, in the 80s, Madonna made herself stand out by doing some really crazy shit.
Yeah, well, I mean,
but she also had good
crazy.
music. Yeah, yeah, and crazy is a poor word. Poor word select, but she did some alternative stuff.
I'd be happy to send you the video. It didn't even, I mean, you know, it got argumentative maybe a couple of little times, you know, the whole time. I mean, it was, nobody threw any pies at anybody or anything. It was actually pretty good. I got on I made the top 100 list right after that. Just saying, you make it where it's very obvious you should be on the list. They'll find a way to put you on. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was very obvious at the end of that day that to do the moderating for that thing and to not get run over by the people in the audience or by the, you know, we had two panels. We had the golf pro, we had a golf pro, got to mention, we had a golf pro panel of 6 of us with Jacobs and Damon Lucas and, you know, the other guys we've talked about. And we had you know, and we had the science panel. So I didn't get run over. And do I sound like the guy that would get run over? So I think at that point, I think at that point they went, you know, he's probably worth more to us on the list than he is, you know, talking bad about the list, because that was a big contention of mine. It's like, I knew I could teach as good as anybody I had seen teach. Still to this day, I don't think that's cocky. It just, that's what I believe. And I think that's the one thing that is missing in the industry, you know, to get off of this other stuff that, you know, to try to put a bow on all of this. The number one reason the golf teaching industry is where it is not enough people watch golf lessons who aren't taking them. So that would be bad golf lessons, average golf lessons, good golf lessons, and great golf lessons. It's just not done. And it's like poo-pooed. It's like, oh, what do you mean we're going to have a teach-off or a teaching exhibition? How dare you? It's developmental. Come on. I don't know anything about bowling. I mean, I bowled. Right? I was in one league my whole life. I bowled 239 with a one-game lucky game with a house ball. But I'm not a bowler. But if you let me watch 100 people teaching bowling, I can pick the best 10 guys out of it. I don't know anything about bowling.
Mm-hmm.
I know I throw a backup ball and name one good player in the friggin' world who's bowler, doesn't throw a hook, but I think I know enough. And you know what? I'm pretty damn sure you could do it. I'm pretty damn sure my mother-in-law could do it. I'm pretty sure my 91-year-old mom could do it. She might whiff on one or two people, but you know, that's the thing that this should all be about. All of this stuff in the industry ought to be about finding the people who can get it done. So what's happened to fill that void, because you have no more debate, what's happened to fill that void is now teachers endlessly put up hand-picked swings of students as like, you know, like we have somebody in the family that's real good at makeup. Well, how does anybody know they want to go get their makeup done by them? Because they put up pictures of all these girls with the makeup done. Looks like that, you know, modern makeup in 2021. This young lady's very good at doing it, and people look at that and go, "Hey, I wanted to do me because I got a big dance to go to or a big wedding or something like that." Right? So that's what these teachers are doing. It's a little weird because you're using somebody that's a student that probably might have just made one of those swings like you wanted them to, and might go take a lesson from another guy tomorrow and another gal on Thursday. But that's what's being done. And that's how people are picking teachers right now. They're going, well, I like this guy's, the swings he's producing. Well, shoot. I mean, that ain't very fair, right? I mean, what about the guys who don't have the body for golf, who are beginners that you've given 7 lessons to, and they've hit, you know, 40 or 50 balls, 40 or 50 buckets of balls in their life, and they've played 72 holes total. What about those swings?
Yeah,
they're super inflexible. Put that guy's swing up. If you're proud of yourself so much, put that one up.
I don't think enough focus is given to taking something from where it started to where it is. And what I mean by that is, with all due respect to all the top 100 guys out there, as you mentioned, you can pick and choose who you select to put out there and say, hey, I got this guy better, and I took this guy from struggling in his Corn Ferry to now he's winning the PGA Tour, which is a major accomplishment, no doubt. But I'd like to see someone who takes somebody who has been unable to break 100 for, let's say, 10 years, and now they got him down to single digit in 12 to 18 months or in less. I want to see someone who's made massive gains in a very short period of time in what they did to do that.
In fairness, there's a few people that do that, but not that much. It's usually the method teachers who do it because they show you, look at this guy, he's all over the place. He's obviously a hacker, and now he sort of kind of looks like our model, but not a very good version of it. That you see that, but you really, what I want to do, and I've built this studio partially to do it, even though right now it's 90% of where I give my lessons, including the one I'm going to give in a half hour, is I want to do live lessons online that people can watch. I'm not going to do it for free. I mean, I'm doing this to pay my house notes, but I'm not scared of failing. And Johnny Carson didn't always come out and give a good monologue, but he knew how to make it entertaining even when he bombed, right? And I think I can make the lesson worth watching. I don't think there's a whole lot of people that want you to watch them teach, because I don't know if put it to you this way, it's the same reason, Pete, that there are people moving up in this industry who you can't buy a video that says this is a way to make a swing, much less the swing. Now, can you imagine in a world where you have a really good camera in your pocket 24 hours a day, or maybe not when you're sleeping, but I know some people take their phone into bed with them. But there are people who were nobody 10 years ago or somebody now, and you can't even, they've managed to do it like invisibly. Like, okay, they've got students that you know who they are and all that, but what do you think somebody ought to do? How about a video on the grip and the setup? And I've done a lot of videos, and I want to do more. But I don't even think I think you shouldn't be able to be a golf teacher in America or Spain or Russia without posting one live video a year that's at least a half an hour long. And you can pick the one you want, but it's got to be the whole lesson now. Everybody sneezing, into their shirt, the whole thing. You put it up. That's what, if I was czar, that's what I would make everybody do for free, because it would be free. It would be the number one thing. If I could get any wish I wanted, if that was done, that would help golf instruction and golf more than any other one thing that you could do.
Almost like a reality show of lessons, golf instruction. I think that part of the recipe of his very rapid rise to prominence and fame was Genghis did that. Where they would have a lot of that lesson.
No, I wasn't talking about him. He's got a ton of content.
Right. But I'm to your point, he did that, and I don't think he did that as at least a story that I was told. He wasn't okay. Someone wants to film me giving these lessons, that's fine, but I'm going to give my lessons. But to your point, that part of what helped him propel him was he was actually doing lessons. Like he's not posing, he's not looking at a camera and saying do this. He's actually in the middle of a real life lesson, and somebody was filming it, and I think that was allowed people to get a better understanding of, hey, this is how this guy teaches. He really knows his shit.
I would say just as much as that. He had a lot of videos that he's good on camera now.
Mm-hmm.
That would just, like he's in his socks and soccer shoes.
I think that was part of the draw. A lot of people like that.
That's fine. But he picks up a wooden spoon and makes a swing. I've done videos like that too. I'm not trying to be, I had somebody give me grief for doing it once. But the I will say this, partial, 1%, half of 1%, partial. He came along at a good time. Nobody really scrutinized his stuff. When I got thrown off of those forums basically because I said, you fix the club face to fix a slice. If you search how to fix a slice now, so it's almost 20 years later from the first forum I got thrown off basically for that, it is now pretty much that's what people believe. Fix the face. If you want to fix a slice, then you'll fix the path because it'll probably half fix itself. It was self-evident then, but there wasn't a whole lot of people saying it, and there were less doing it, and there were less people saying it, and I said it, and they crucified me. George came along, partially aided by the Alpha War, and the person I talked about that's a speed guy did too. I don't remember anybody debating this stuff. You know what I mean? I mean, I see stuff now of people talking about, sitting, spinning a downswing in a way that they don't really like it or whatever. I think some people slide, some people don't. That's the way I look at it. But he did not have a whole lot of. I'm not taking anything away from the guy. I'm just saying that's the facts. That's one good thing about the internet pre-Alpha War is that if you came up with something, you made it through the gauntlet. You had to get through all of the guys, the Jeff Martins.
Oh, I had it out with him. When I just got on social, I didn't even know who he was. I'm like, who is this guy?
Hey man, the guy upset my wife. My wife is a sharp business person. It's hard to upset her. She plays with the big boys every day. I mean, he's a brutal arguer, an internet terrorist even. Now the guy has made himself, because Chambly needed a guy like him. He's an Hogan expert, on documentaries. It's funny,
He's
good for him.
Professional, he's a professional witness, isn't he?
Yes, and a professional golf swing terrorist, right? But not anymore. He's an expert now. But good. I call, just so anybody knows that don't know me that's listening at this point. I called that guy within the first 30 days that me and Michael Jacobs got the software to tell him that something that Miyahara had said that he was seeing in the body, we had found what the club was doing. He had to be right. And that guy and me were at it as much as you could be at it with somebody without going to blows. So I'm fair. And when he got this relationship with Chambly, and now all of a sudden he was like not just this weird little guy running around, looking. He would look if you had a guy arguing with him, if there was a guy arguing with him, he would look that guy job up and post who the guy was. Maybe he had a screen name, where he worked. He would terrorize the guy. He didn't care. So the guy became legit. He found Chambly, and Chambly needed a guy like that because Chambly's more of a block you, where the other guy would argue, right? Mm-hmm. So you need to have somebody like that to win some debates on golf swing on the internet. And I called Jeffy on the phone and I said, hey man, you won that one. You kicked my ass. He did. I was arguing with the guy about this, that, and the other thing. That guy became legitimate. And everybody was calling me controversial. I don't know a person that hadn't argued with that guy yet. So, but that's the golf industry, right? That guy wound up an expert on the Hogan documentary. They got people that are 14 handicappers that have run big summits. It's a weird industry, man. This can't happen in other, like football will eat you up and spit you out, right? Ed Orgeron won the damn national championship. He's one loss from going bye-bye during the season. 2 years later, right? If Kentucky win that game, if Kentucky beats him in this game, I know that dates this podcast, but he's gone. And he was king of the world, 60 minutes, blah, 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 blah. So the golf industry is weird enough where people who have no business being big deals become big deals. But at the end of the day, it should be about what information is actually making people get better and the delivery of that information. Because you can have all the information in the world and still be, by the way, kind of a relatively poor teacher if you just can't teach. It's its own little subcategory.
Well,
right?
let me
I
ask you
argue
this.
with people about learning all the time, but I mean, at the end of the day, it's true. The knowledge is one thing, but getting somebody to know it and do it is something altogether different.
I got to ask you this drifting a little bit back to the Alpha Wars, and I know you've got some other stuff. I don't want to keep you too long, and I'm not trying to throw this in there really quick at the end. But Bryson, the group he's around, some of the people in his camp are people that are the other side, so to speak, in the Alpha War. And how do you argue that the success that Bryson has, if he's listening to some of the things that they're telling him? It's got to have some validity to it.
Because no. Look, what's the best way to say this? There's three things. Okay, one, you could tell a tour player something on purpose that's wrong. Everybody agrees it's wrong. Move your head massively forward during the hit, and they could go win a tournament trying to do it. Not doing it, but trying to do it. So there's the first thing. Now, you tell a bunch of people at the City Park driving range down the street to do that, you're gonna have broken clubs and lawsuits. Okay, so there's the first thing. The second thing is that I don't think they're using that. Every time they run a swing, it all comes out the same. He probably got bored at looking at, he would make probably a pretty big change. They would run the swing and probably see almost the same thing. I'm sure it said something different, but all of those swings look the same when you run them the way they do it. I think he got bored of that. I heard some rumor that everybody was laying around one night and he said it's the most overrated stuff in the world. He's never seen any of our stuff, I promise. So, I mean, it really is not that much of a factor where some, in what he's being taught, right? I don't think they're measuring them every time there's a big change, and maybe they are, God bless them, but it's one guy, right? Just like Jacobs has had a lot of success with Patrick Harrington. I mean, at the end of the road, the guys had a pretty damn good year, and he finished fourth in the PGA, and the knock on Jacobs was he hadn't taught any tour players well. He has a 3-time major winner that, would write him a biggest letter of recommendation you ever saw right now. I mean, they're currently still working together. So you can't look. There are names that you can name that are world famous, probably more famous than I'm ever going to become, that were the king of golf instruction, that nobody is even talking about their stuff right now. They were king. They had people winning majors. They were the king. They were building houses big as country clubhouses. Nobody's arguing their stuff anymore. They're yesterday's news to some respect. So why isn't their stuff right if it's different than either one of these two thoughts? Listen, for the people that don't know what we're talking about, I got about 5 minutes. The people that don't know what we're talking about, if you hold a club up in front of you, and the toe of the club's pointing straight up and the score lines are pointing straight up, and you take your right hand off the club and you take your pointer finger and you point the pointer finger at the target, and then you put the pointer finger pointing at the target or parallel to the target, might be slightly off of the target line because you're holding the club up in the air, right up against the back of the shaft. And then you push the shaft with that finger. That's force across the shaft.
Mm-hmm.
People put force across the shaft. When they run swings doing it our way, there's no force across the shaft. There's really no debate. Everybody knows in the swing there's force across. The one that Jacobs posted up that I talked about a couple of days ago was a guy working with a famous teacher, currently famous teacher, who had massive force across the shaft early, way more than we think you should, then had so much of it they had to go negative in the middle of the swing, which they say everybody does at the bottom, and then went positive again to hit it. Everybody they run looks the same. Does Jack Nicklaus and Arnold Palmer in their primes look the same?
No.
Does David Toms and Payne Stewart, they're both smooth. Do their swings look the same? No. And when somebody runs a swing through our software, it's very obvious it's right. And it sounds good on paper that it's just a difference of opinion, but I want to leave everybody with this. On November the 1st, which is less than a month away, Dr. Steve and Michael Jacobs are doing a seminar, a biomechanics of golf seminar, 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the afternoon, giving people 3 or 4 hours to do stuff in the middle of the day. I'm kind of running the technical part of it. And in the last hour, it's my show. I'm going to ask, I promise you, Pete, since God is my judge, every legitimate question that's been asked in the last 7 years, because it's really the same stuff over and over and over again, so it's not that hard to do. And then we're going to ask the people who are going to watch, send some questions in. We might even have a question draft one night. Hey, let's see. Let's have a vote on what we want to ask. Because, I mean, we got an hour at the end of the seminar to do this. I think it's pretty much going to be over after that. I really predict that the war as we know it will be over, because it's going to be so obvious that this guy's in a different league than everybody else in this conversation. If you put me with a bunch of high school golf PE teachers teaching high school golf, and they're 25 handicappers that have never given a lesson, but for the last 10 years they've been given and we all do a bunch of seminars and they listen to me, man, I'm running over those guys. And that's what's going to happen. And then we can just figure out what the aftermath is. It'll probably sound something like this. Oh, well, if we would have just had Dr. Steve do this in the beginning, it would never all have happened. Come on, man. They don't like us. We don't like them, and it's business, and we're trying to be first, and that's it. It's that simple. They can't
where can
do
people,
it, and this guy can.
Where can people find out more about
Jacobs3D.com or michaeljacobs.com. Any of the Michael Jacobs websites, his Twitter page, and then literally in the next probably 24 hours, I'm going to do a little, because all the Twitter videos are 2 minutes and 20 seconds. I've been doing a lot of them. I'm sure some of these people that are listening have probably seen my stuff. So I'm going to do a 2 minute and 20 version, second, promo version, and there'll be a link on mine too. So right now you can go to Michael Jacobs's website or any of his social media feeds, and it's a reasonable price. It's not just about alpha. They just did a paper together on some revolutionary stuff that they learned with the Jacobs 3D body program, which is a lot more complex. And Dr. Steve will say that, I'm sure, that there's a trick that they figured out about body positioning that makes the golf swing and probably other human movement much easier to do. I think they're going to kind of spill the beans on that in the presentation. And there's going to be a live capture. So there's going to be a person who's never been captured before that's going to be captured while the cameras are running. Mike's going to run the darn thing through the computer while the cameras are running, and then he's going to tell everybody what they did. We did this a couple years ago at Grand Cypress in front of 20 of the top 50 or something like that, and it was unbelievable because Mike was telling you what the people were doing that he didn't even see them swing. I mean, it was two guys. One, I think he saw the downswing. The second guy, he didn't even see the swing, and he's looking at it and he's going, well, he did this, 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 and this. And the next day, the guy got on that second guy got on a force plate and spiked the force plate at the same point he spiked the Jacobs 3D in the category that would be related to that. And you probably never heard that even never existed. Well, I mean, they were famous teachers in the room, and they could have asked they saw it live. It was obviously described, and the software was obviously describing what there was nobody going, I don't know about that. And let me tell you, I know some of these guys in the room, and you've heard of pretty much all of them. Mm-hmm. They're the kind of people just like me that would have said, but wait a minute here. So it's been done before, but this will be part of the thing, a live capture, a live run, and then you're going to say, hey,
and that's like November 1st?
November the 1st, and it'll be the first time since all of this, since Anti-Summit 2, which is 11 years ago, or so, that somebody can ask, just all you got to do is just sign up, and I'll have a link real soon that people can send the stuff to, and we may even do that question draft party. But all the questions that you would ask, Pete, or if you did any, online research of all of this stuff for the last 7 years, and you went, okay, well, here seems to be the four main questions. Don't worry. I'm going to start right at the top. I ain't going to mess around. I'm going to get to it right now because, boy, when I'm telling you, the greatest present of all time would just be over with. And I could just go on just trying to be the best teacher in the world. And not have to spend any of your, quality airtime or anybody else's time talking about whether Dr. Steve can make a golf club analysis program.
Well,
It's basically like saying whether or not I could fix a slicer that has a weak grip and an open club face at the top.
I'll have all the links in your summary on my page, and when I push it out there, everyone can just click on it. And if you get one for your site, send it over to me, and I'll be sure to put it in the summary.
Well, I really appreciate you having me on the show and giving me a chance to, equal time, because I know the other side got a couple shots at it. And, I'm gonna leave everybody with this. I don't think this is going to be done again, but I'll make this offer right now. I don't think Jacobs will have any problem. Anytime, anywhere, we'll show up, and we'll have Michael Neff from Gear show up, and we'll have a golfer from the audience hit a ball, and we'll be in a hermetically sealed room like the $64,000 question. And they can run it through their little software and stand up and jump up and down and say whatever they want. And then we'll pull another person out of the audience, and we'll do the same thing. Anytime, any place, anywhere. That offer's been made for a long time. And there was another guy on your show recently that was saying, we've asked these guys. They no more want to do that than fly to the moon in June from Chalmette, Louisiana. I can promise you it would be very obvious who's got the goods. So I don't think that's going to be necessary after November 1st, but it's an open invitation.
Well, if I can work on it, I'll try to pull it together with my little show, and maybe we can make a giant. I'll bring it all together at once, and I'll be in touch with you, and I'll be in touch with anyone on the other side.
You'll see the backpedaling here in a couple of weeks. If they just would have brought Dr. Steve out. Man, listen, Pete, you have a great show. Thank you so much for having me on. I'd love to be on again and talk about how
I'll
to
definitely
fix
have you. I got
hookers.
a laundry list of stuff we can talk about, and next time we'll definitely do a rapid fire, because that's sometimes the funnest part of the show.
Absolutely.
You have a great day, Brian.
Thank you so much, Pete. Proper.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to today's show. If you enjoyed it, you can find more information on today's episode and other topics at golf360.blog. There you'll find the show notes and links related to this episode, as well as any other episode that we've done so far to date. If you're interested in improving your game and would like to learn more from yours truly by taking a private lesson, a half-day or multi-day school, club or putter fitting, you can reach me through the blog site or by email, pete@golf360.blog. So some of you may be asking, what is the golf paradigm? All you have to do is click on the homepage while on my blog site to discover how you can start playing better than you ever thought possible. Or you can simply sign up, again, on the blog page for my instructional videos where I give regular tips on all areas of the game to include the swing, club design and fitting, health, fitness and nutrition, the mental aspects, and equally as important, the integration of all those things together. I'm also on social media, and you can find me at The Golf Paradigm. That's PARADIGM, and I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, also under the same name, The Golf Paradigm. Facebook is usually the best way to reach me for questions and or comments, and I look forward to hearing what all of you have to say. This podcast is brought to you in part by Old South Golf Links. A short ride across a bridge from Hilton Head Island is one of the area's finest golf courses and a hidden treasure. Set up on towering pines and ancient oaks with sweeping marsh vistas, truly makes Old South Golf Links a one-of-a-kind golfing experience. The Clyde Johnson design was named one of the top 10 new public courses when it opened, and it also takes full advantage of the natural beauty of the Low Country. Old South is a fun and unique challenge for golfers of every skill level and a favorite of both locals and visitors. Whether it's your first time here or you're a regular, you'll be treated and feel like family. From the bag drop to check-in at the fully stocked pro shop with both men's and women's apparel, to breakfast or lunch before or after your round, the staff is always ready and willing to help. Experience for yourself why Old South is one of the premier golf courses in the Hilton Head area and why it will quickly become a favorite of yours too. Visit them in person or online at www.oldsouthgolf.com, or to make it tee time, simply call the Pro Shop at 843-785-5353. All right, everybody.